and the target of your entire country, how many of you would have the courage to continue to speak against your attackers in homeland? This is the story of Malala Yousafzai, the educational rights activist who stood up to the Taliban to fight for hers and her fellow classmates' rights to study. On July 12, 1997, Malala Yousafzai was born in the Swat district of Pakistan. She was a bright student and devoted herself to her studies. She originally began studying to become a doctor, but as she noticed the hardships of women and the people of her country, she soon decided she would better serve the people as a politician. By 11 years old, she was already an activist for educational rights in her own country of Pakistan. This gives you an idea of the type of person she was, the type of person she would become, who would begin to fight against the regime of the Taliban in her own country. Born of humble means, Malala Yousafzai, her two brothers, and her parents were natives of the Swat district of the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province of Pakistan. Her father, Ziauddin Yousafzai, school owner and education activist himself, was responsible for his daughter's education and rise to fame in the world of activism. Cultural practices in the family's home of the Swat district are a testament to the marginalization of women, and the Yousafzai household were no strangers to what that entailed. Women are not entitled to the same rights men are in this region, creating an unfair sense of classism of men over women. Unfortunately, this cultural norm creates many domestic issues for the women of Pakistan. Malala was born to a culture known for its laws of religious extremes and harsh discrimination of women in her country. Regarded as the sixth most dangerous country in the world for women by the Thomas Reuters Foundation, it is all too common to see young girls forced into marriage, sexually harassed, and domestically abused. According to an article by SBS News, more than 470 cases of honor killings were reported across the country in 2021. A legal practice today in Pakistan, an honor killing is defined by the Oxford Dictionary as the killing of a relative, especially a girl or woman, who is perceived to have brought dishonor on the family. In a private study, it was concluded that 93% of women were the victims of harassment in some form. The list of unfair treatment towards women in Pakistan is endless, and to fight those in power and their supporters is a death sentence. In a brief history of the Yousafzai's homeland, on the 25th of October 2007, the Swat district fell victim to an attempted Taliban occupation. The reason for the Taliban's attack on this region, home to nearly 2.5 million inhabitants, was the attempt to institute their own Sharia law in the region. The original battle for control of the land lasted only 1 month, seeing the Pakistani military victors over the Taliban. After the battle for the Swat district was reclaimed by the Pakistani government, their soldiers slowly made their way out of the area, leaving the chance for the Taliban insurgents to move back into the undefended region. By 2009, most of the Swat district was under the control of the Taliban and its Sharia law. Due to the strength of the Taliban stronghold, and in an attempt to avoid another civil war, the Pakistani government announced a ceasefire and allowed the practice of Taliban law in Swat while under government supervision. What is Sharia law, and what does it now mean for the women of Swat? The Sharia is a complex law that follows the rules and teachings of the Quran very strictly. This creates an unfair treatment of women under law due to a few of the teachings of the Quran. For example, according to the Islamic sacred book, verse 434, men are the managers of women. In verse 282, teaching that the value of a woman's testimony is worth half of a man's. In a country where women's rights are already at a disadvantage, Sharia law under rule of the Taliban makes it even harder. In 2008, the Swat district became a point of interest for the international news outlet BBC. In an attempt to better understand the new occupation of the Taliban and what it meant for the young women of Swat, journalist Amr Ahmed Khan set out to interview a young female student anonymously in the attempt to get a first-point perspective from inside. When fear got the best of all young women, only one stepped forward and was willing to take on such a dangerous task. Enter the young Malala, only 11 years old at the time. On the 3rd of January, her article named "I Am Afraid" was published, but not without its consequences. Taliban forces began blowing up schools and prevented girls from attending school henceforth. Her article was powerful and brought attention from all over the world to the destruction of children's schools. While the attacks carried on, less students continued attending school as it became too dangerous. Yet Malala carried on, and she did not allow fear of the Taliban's threats to silence her. She continued to blog the personal experience of herself and other young women in the area amid the violence and destruction caused by the insurgents. Malala displayed all the characteristics of an effective citizen activist. Malala was a voice for those without one. At only 11 years old, she was a citizen activist, gaining the respect of the world through her bravery and determination. She didn't shy from the fight and inspired thousands of young women to stand up and fight for their rights. In her own country, she made her first speech in the national spotlight, condemning the actions and laws of the Taliban, preventing young girls from attending school and receiving an education. This, along with her first BBC article, brought the attention of the insurgents upon Malala and her family. Her father began receiving threats to control his daughter and to end the insubordination. When this would be more than enough to scare any normal person, it only inspired Malala. As she grew older and more confident, her protest for right to education grew and gained international attention. She was quickly recognized by the Prime Minister of Pakistan and awarded the National Peace Award for Youth as she continued to advocate for her cause through interviews, TV broadcasts, and blogs. She always remained a peaceful activist, only using her voice to fight for women's rights in her home country and abroad. Domestically, the Taliban's threats became more aggressive, attacking her through her Facebook page, publishing threats in local newspapers, and leaving notes at her door. When all of this failed to stop her, the threats quickly came to pass. Taliban leaders decided the only option left was to kill her, and the target on her back was no longer only a metaphor. On October 9, 2012, on her way home from school, a Taliban fighter entered her school bus demanding to know who Malala was. When discovered, he shot her in the head, and with the Taliban's problem solved, her attempted assassin left her for dead at the feet of her classmates. Quickly attended to and rushed to a local hospital, her wounds were treated while induced in a medical coma. Malala was unconscious for 3 days following the shooting and suffered brain swelling, organ failure, and more during her time in the Pakistani hospital. Once stabilized, she was flown to a German hospital to complete care and recovery of her wounds. She recovered well and still did not allow that to stop her. Hillary Clinton commented on the attack, saying, "The attack reminds us of the challenges that girls face, whether it is poverty or marginalization or even violence just speaking out for their basic rights." Numerous other celebrities and political leaders from all over the world reacted to her bravery and commented on the attack. With the whole world on her side, Malala's fight was renewed with a new vigor despite the Taliban's continued threats to finish what they started. Less than a year later, she gave an emotional speech at the United Nations addressing the battle for education in her home country. Regarding this, she commented, "So here I stand, one girl among many. I speak not for myself, but for all girls and boys. I raise up my voice, not so that I can shout, but so that those without a voice can be heard. Those who have fought for their rights, their right to live in peace, their right to be treated with dignity, their right to equality of opportunity, their right to be educated." After her speech given on the day of her birthday, July 12th became internationally recognized as Malala Day. Today, Malala continues as an activist against the harsh treatment against women in countries under Muslim law. Her dedication and bravery testify to her resolve and are an everyday inspiration to millions around the world. She has since won numerous awards for her activism, including the Nobel Peace Prize, seeing her as the youngest ever recipient of the award. Nothing has ever stopped the once 11-year-old girl who decided to change the world, proving right her words, "When the whole world is silent, even one voice becomes powerful."